My fiancée left my daughter home alone while taking her own kids out for dinner and mini-golf, then got angry when I confronted her about it. I returned the ring after my daughter finally told me the truth. I never thought I'd be posting here, but the past few months have completely turned my life upside down. For background, I'm Dave, 39M, a single dad to Dorothy, 10F. Dorothy's mom walked out when she was just 3 years old and never looked back. No calls, no cards, nothing. My former mother-in-law, Carol, has been a huge help in raising Dorothy. She lives about 15 minutes away and has always stepped in when I needed childcare. 4 years ago, I met Michelle, 37F. She has 2 daughters, Emma, 15F, and Zoe, 12F, from a previous marriage. Michelle shares custody with her father through an unusual arrangement where she has them from January through June, and he has them the rest of the year. When we first started dating, Michelle was great with Dorothy. She filled that mother figure role that had been missing. Dorothy took to her right away, and for over 3 years, everything seemed perfect. Michelle and her daughters moved into my house this past September. It's a 3-bedroom place, not huge, but comfortable. Dorothy has had her own room since she was little. I've tried to keep things stable for her, especially since her mom left. She's always been a homebody, spending time either with me or Carol. Until recently, she'd never been left alone for more than an hour, and even that was rare, usually just quick trips to the store during daylight hours. The problem started in November, about 2 months after Michelle and her girls moved in. Michelle approached me about bedroom arrangements. She wanted her oldest daughter Emma to have her own room, which would mean Dorothy would need to share with Zoe. Michelle argued that since Emma was older and only lived with us half the year, she deserved her own space. I didn't agree. Dorothy had always had her own room in this house. This was her safe space, her territory. My gut told me that making her give up her room and share with someone she barely knew would make her feel pushed aside in her own home. I tried explaining this to Michelle, but she didn't seem to understand why I was being difficult about it. We eventually dropped the subject, but I could tell it was still bothering Michelle. Things were tense for a few weeks, but seemed to settle down as we got into the holiday season. Last weekend changed everything. I got called into work unexpectedly for a 12-hour shift on Saturday. This happens occasionally. I work in emergency maintenance at an industrial facility, and when something breaks down, I have to go in. Usually, when this happens, Dorothy goes to Carol's house. But this time, Michelle assured me she would take care of Dorothy, so I didn't call Carol. When I got home around 9:30 p.m., I found Dorothy sitting alone in the living room, watching TV. She was still in her pajamas from that morning. When I asked her how her day was, she just shrugged. That's when I noticed the takeout bag on the coffee table in front of her. The container inside was completely cold. I asked Dorothy where Michelle and the girls were. She said they went out and told her they'd bring dinner home. When I asked more questions, I learned that they had gone out to eat at a restaurant and then to play mini-golf. They had left Dorothy home alone for at least 5 hours. I waited up for Michelle to get home. When she arrived around 10:15 p.m. with her daughters, I asked to speak with her privately. I told her I thought it was extremely rude to exclude Dorothy from a family outing, especially when I wasn't home. Michelle immediately got defensive. She fixated on the food being cold, saying Dorothy could have heated it up herself and that she hadn't expected her to eat it cold. When I kept pushing about why she left Dorothy out, Michelle turned it around on me. She asked why it was okay for me to go places with just Dorothy. I explained that in the months since her daughters had moved in, my outings with just Dorothy had been grocery shopping and one visit to the vet for Dorothy's cat. These were necessities, not fun family activities like dinner and mini-golf. The argument ended with both of us frustrated and nothing resolved. I slept in the guest room that night. The following week was uncomfortable. Michelle and I barely spoke beyond what was necessary for household functioning. The girls picked up on the tension, but we tried to keep things civil in front of them. Then Friday came. Michelle was taking Emma and Zoe to the dentist for their 6-month checkups. As they were heading out the door, Michelle made a comment about hoping this didn't offend Dorothy too. The sarcasm in her voice was unmistakable. I lost my temper. I called her behavior childish and inappropriate. She fired back that I was being ridiculous about the whole situation. We both said things we shouldn't have. Later that evening, after the girls were in bed, Michelle brought it up again. She said I was being completely unreasonable for arguing about her taking her kids out. She explained that since she only gets to see her daughters for 6 months of the year, she wanted special time alone with them. She accused me of not understanding the difficulties of shared custody. Michelle then said something that really got to me. She claimed that her kids might feel alienated from their own mother if they couldn't enjoy time alone with her. She added that because of the age gap between Dorothy and Emma, there would be many times when Dorothy would naturally be excluded from activities. I told her I understood wanting alone time with her kids, but suggested we could plan separate activities on the same day so no one felt left out. I also made it clear that if she expected our relationship to work, she needed to treat Dorothy as one of her own. Michelle dismissed my concerns entirely. She said I was missing her point because I'd never dealt with shared custody. She insisted that calling her out for spending time with her kids was a jerk move on my part. What bothers me most about the whole situation isn't that Michelle wanted alone time with her daughters. Before we lived together, she would take them to amusement parks, water parks, and other activities. Sometimes Dorothy and I would join them, sometimes not. That was fine then, We were two separate households. And when her girls were with their dad, Michelle, Dorothy, and I would do things together, with occasional date nights when Dorothy stayed with Carol. But now we're supposed to be one family under one roof. What really got to me was that Michelle chose a weekend when I was working to exclude Dorothy. There will be plenty of weekends between now and June when I'm home and could take Dorothy out or stay with her while Michelle does something with her girls. The timing feels deliberate. And why didn't anyone tell Dorothy about the mini-golf? She only knew they were bringing food home. It feels like Michelle was trying to hide the full extent of the outing from her, which makes me question her intentions. The more I think about it, the more concerned I become about Michelle's treatment of Dorothy. If she's capable of this kind of behavior when I'm not around, what else might happen? I can't have someone in my house who treats my daughter like an afterthought. I need advice. Am I overreacting here? Is it unreasonable to expect Michelle to include Dorothy in family activities now that we're all living together? Or should I be concerned about this pattern of behavior? Update 1. It's been 3 weeks since my original post, and things have gotten worse instead of better. Thank you to everyone who commented and offered advice. Reading through your responses helped me realize I wasn't overreacting. If anything, I might have been too patient with the situation. The day after my post, Michelle and I tried to have a calm conversation about the issues between us. I explained again why I was upset about her leaving Dorothy home alone and excluding her from the family outing. I thought we were making progress when Michelle acknowledged that she could have handled the situation differently. But then she quickly followed it up by saying she still felt justified in wanting special time with just her daughters. I suggested again that we could coordinate separate activities on the same days, so everyone could have their special time without anyone feeling excluded. Michelle seemed reluctant but agreed to try it. The following weekend, I planned to take Dorothy to the Science Museum. She'd been wanting to see the new dinosaur exhibit. I told Michelle about our plans 3 days in advance, suggesting she might want to do something special with Emma and Zoe that day. She said she'd think about it. The morning of our museum trip, I went to wake Dorothy up and found her already awake, crying into her pillow. When I asked what was wrong, she showed me texts from her friend across the street. The friend had seen Michelle and her daughters at the mall yesterday afternoon. They'd gone shopping and to the movies. Michelle hadn't mentioned this outing to me or Dorothy. When confronted, Michelle didn't even try to deny it. Instead, she said, "I didn't realize I needed permission to take my kids shopping." She claimed they'd made a spontaneous decision after school, but Emma later let slip that they'd been planning the movie trip for days. That weekend, I took Dorothy to Carol's house more than usual. I needed time to think, and Dorothy clearly needed a break from the tension at home. Carol noticed something was wrong and asked what was happening. After I explained the situation, she offered to let Dorothy stay with her more often if needed. She also reminded me that Dorothy's well-being needed to be my priority. By the second week, Michelle had stopped pretending to try. She started taking more mom-only outings with her daughters, often without telling me in advance. When I'd ask where they were going, she'd give vague answers like out or just to grab something. The breaking point came last Wednesday. I came home from work to find the house empty except for Dorothy, who was doing homework at the kitchen table. She told me Michelle had left around 2:30 p.m., saying they'd be back for dinner. It was now almost 6 p.m. I texted Michelle asking where everyone was. She replied that they were at Emma's volleyball game, which had apparently been scheduled for weeks. This was the first I'd heard about it. I asked why Dorothy wasn't invited, and Michelle responded that she wouldn't have enjoyed it anyway. When they finally got home around 7:30 p.m., I noticed they'd stopped for ice cream afterward. Emma was still finishing her cone. No ice cream for Dorothy, of course. That night, after the girls went to bed, I told Michelle we needed to talk about our relationship. I explained that her behavior was creating a hostile environment for Dorothy, who was feeling increasingly unwelcome in her own home. I said I couldn't continue in a relationship where my daughter was treated as less important than her children. Michelle got defensive immediately. She accused me of trying to control her relationship with her daughters and said I didn't understand the pressure she felt during their months together. She claimed she was trying to make up for lost time. I pointed out that she seemed perfectly capable of including Dorothy in activities before we lived together, and asked what had changed. She stumbled over her answer, eventually saying that living together was different and more complicated. When I pressed her on why living together should mean treating Dorothy worse rather than better, she finally admitted something that floored me. She said she resented that Dorothy got to stay in her own room while her daughters had to share. She felt I was prioritizing Dorothy over her kids, so why shouldn't she prioritize her kids over Dorothy? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Michelle was essentially admitting to deliberately excluding a 10-year-old child because of a disagreement with me over bedrooms. It was petty and cruel, and completely changed how I saw her. I told Michelle I needed some space to think. The next morning, I called my boss and took 2 days of personal leave. I packed bags for Dorothy and myself and went to stay at a hotel nearby. I texted Michelle that we needed time apart, and she should use the time to think about whether she really wanted this relationship to work. During our hotel stay, Dorothy and I had some good talks. Without directly criticizing Michelle, I asked how she felt about our living situation. Dorothy admitted she felt like she was always walking on eggshells around Michelle and her daughters lately. She said she missed how things used to be, when Michelle would bring her little presents and help with her homework. Yesterday, we went back home. Michelle was surprisingly subdued. She said she'd been thinking about everything and realized we couldn't continue living together under the current circumstances. She suggested moving out temporarily, to give everyone some breathing room. She mentioned looking for a small apartment for herself and her daughters until June, when they would go back to their fathers. As much as part of me wanted to work things out, I felt nothing but relief at her suggestion. I told her I thought that would be for the best. She started apartment hunting online immediately and has a few viewings scheduled for tomorrow. So that's where things stand now. Michelle will be moving out soon. I'm not sure what this means for our relationship long term, but right now, protecting Dorothy has to be my priority. The engagement is effectively on hold, though neither of us has officially ended it. I'll update again once Michelle finds a place and moves out. Thank you again for all your support and advice. Update 2. It's been another month, and as promised, I'm back with an update. Michelle moved out 3 weeks ago, finding a 2-bedroom apartment about 20 minutes away. Emma and Zoe are sharing a room there, ironically enough. The move itself was tense but civil. I took Dorothy to Carol's house for the day to spare her from any potential drama. Michelle had arranged for a few friends to help remove the essentials, and I assisted with some of the heavier furniture. By evening, they were settled enough for their first night in the new place. Since then, our communication has been minimal, mostly text messages about practical matters like mail that arrives for her or coordinating times when she could pick up additional belongings. Michelle suggested that once things calmed down, we could try dating again, living separately but maintaining our relationship. I told her I needed more time to think about it. 2 weeks after the move, Michelle asked if Dorothy could come over for dinner with them on Friday night. I was hesitant but didn't want to stand in the way if Dorothy wanted to go. When I asked Dorothy about it, she surprised me by saying she didn't want to go. She said it felt weird now. I respected her decision and told Michelle that Dorothy wasn't up for it yet. Michelle didn't take the news well. She sent me a long text about how she was trying to make amends and I wasn't meeting her halfway. She accused me of turning Dorothy against her and her daughters. I didn't respond immediately, needing time to cool down before replying. Before I could respond, something unexpected happened. Carol called me, sounding concerned. She asked if I knew about the conversation Michelle had with Dorothy last month, shortly after the mini-golf incident. When I said I didn't, Carol explained that Dorothy had only just told her about it. According to Dorothy, Michelle had pulled her aside one morning while I was in the shower and told her that she needed to understand that blood comes first. Michelle apparently explained to Dorothy that when her daughters were staying with them, they would be her priority, and that was just how families worked. She told Dorothy that she wasn't trying to be mean, but Dorothy needed to grow up and stop expecting to be included in everything. Dorothy hadn't told me about this conversation because Michelle had specifically asked her not to, saying it would just cause problems between the adults and make things worse for everyone. She told Dorothy that sometimes girls need to have girl secrets. I was stunned. This conversation had happened weeks before the dentist comment that sparked our big argument. Michelle had been deliberately setting expectations with Dorothy behind my back, preparing her to accept being treated as less important than her daughters. I called Michelle and asked her about the conversation. At first, she denied it happened, but when I pressed her on the specific details Dorothy had shared, her story changed. She admitted to having a little chat with Dorothy but claimed I was blowing it out of proportion. She said she was just trying to help Dorothy understand the complications of blended families. I ended the call after telling her I needed to rethink everything about our relationship. The next day, I went to her apartment when the girls were at school. I returned her engagement ring and told her I couldn't marry someone who would treat my daughter that way. Michelle cried and apologized, saying she'd been overwhelmed by the changes and hadn't handled things well. She asked for another chance. I stood firm. I explained that her deliberate manipulation of Dorothy, a child who had already lost one mother figure, was something I couldn't overlook. I told her I wished her well but that our relationship was over. As I was leaving, Michelle's demeanor changed dramatically. She said I'd regret this decision, that I was throwing away a good thing over nothing. She claimed no other woman would put up with a man who always put his daughter first. I didn't engage with her anger. I simply said goodbye and left. When I got home, I found Emma had texted Dorothy asking if she hated them now. This broke my heart. The kids were caught in the middle of adult problems. I helped Dorothy craft a response saying she didn't hate anyone, but needed some time. I also suggested that maybe they could still be friends at school. They attend different schools but participate in some of the same district-wide activities. That evening, I sat down with Dorothy and had an honest conversation about what had happened. I explained that Michelle and I wouldn't be getting married, and they wouldn't be moving back in with us. Dorothy seemed relieved but also sad. She asked if she'd still get to see Emma and Zoe sometimes. I told her we'd figure something out, but it would be different now. The past week has been quiet. We're slowly settling back into our routine as a family of two. Dorothy seems more relaxed, laughing more and inviting friends over again, something she had stopped doing when tensions were high at home. As for me, I'm processing a mixture of emotions. Disappointment that the relationship I thought had so much potential turned out this way. Anger at how Michelle treated Dorothy. Relief that I discovered this side of Michelle before we got married. And gratitude for those who encouraged me to stand up for my daughter. Update 3, it's been half a year since my last update, and I've been hesitant to post again because I wasn't sure if there was anything worth sharing. Life has largely returned to normal for Dorothy and me, but recent events prompted me to write this final update. After ending things with Michelle, I focused entirely on rebuilding stability for Dorothy. We redecorated her room, something she'd been asking to do for ages, got back into our old routines, and spent more quality time together. Carol continued to be a steady presence in our lives, often joining us for Sunday dinners. In late June, Emma and Zoe returned to their father's house as scheduled. Michelle texted me to let me know they were leaving and asked again if Dorothy wanted to say goodbye. Dorothy decided she did want to see them, so I took her over for a brief visit. It was awkward but civil. The girls exchanged contact information, though as far as I know, they haven't been in regular communication. Throughout the summer, Michelle occasionally reached out with attempts to reconcile. She sent lengthy emails explaining how she'd reflected on her behavior and realized her mistakes. She asked for coffee meetings to talk things through. I declined these invitations, maintaining that my decision was final. In August, I received a call from Michelle's ex-husband, Brian. This was unusual as we'd only met a handful of times and never spoken privately. He wanted to meet for a beer, saying he had something important to discuss. Curious, I agreed. At the meeting, Brian revealed that Michelle had been bad-mouthing me to mutual friends, claiming I had unreasonable expectations and had ultimately left her because I couldn't handle her daughters. More concerningly, she had been telling Emma and Zoe that I had prevented Dorothy from maintaining a relationship with them, painting me as the villain in the situation. Brian only learned about this when Emma became upset after trying to message Dorothy through social media and receiving no response. It turned out Dorothy never received the messages because she doesn't have accounts on those platforms yet, something Michelle knew well. Brian apologized for getting involved but said he was concerned about the girls being used as pawns. He mentioned that Michelle had displayed similar behavior during their marriage, often creating conflict between him and the girls when she was upset with him. He wasn't telling me this to speak ill of her, but rather to warn me to be vigilant about Dorothy's well-being. I appreciated his candor and assured him I had no intention of preventing the girls from being friends if that's what they wanted. We exchanged contact information and agreed to facilitate occasional meetups between the girls when they returned to Michelle's in January. Last month, almost exactly a year after Michelle and her daughters moved in with us, I received a certified letter from Michelle. Inside was a formal apology letter, along with several pages of reflections on her behavior. She wrote that she had started therapy to address her insecurities and pattern of prioritizing her needs over others. She didn't ask for reconciliation this time, just acknowledged the hurt she had caused and took responsibility for her actions. I sent a brief email thanking her for the letter and wishing her well in her journey. That was the extent of our communication. As for Dorothy and me, we're doing well. Dorothy started 5th grade with enthusiasm and has joined the school science club. She still mentions Emma and Zoe occasionally, usually when something reminds her of them, but without the anxiety that characterized those discussions in the past. I've started dating again, very casually and without introducing anyone to Dorothy yet. The experience with Michelle taught me valuable lessons about blending families and the importance of watching for red flags. I'm more cautious now, but not closed off to the possibility of finding a partner who truly respects the bond I have with my daughter. Carol remains our rock, stepping in whenever needed and providing Dorothy with steady female guidance. I've often wondered how different things might have been if Michelle had approached her role in Dorothy's life with the same selflessness that Carol demonstrates every day. The bedroom that briefly belonged to Emma and Zoe has been converted into a combined guest room and home office. Sometimes when I'm working in there late at night, I reflect on how quickly life can change, how someone can go from being your future wife to a cautionary tale. If there's one thing I've learned from this experience, it's that you can't compromise when it comes to your child's emotional safety. No relationship is worth watching your kid shrink into the background, feeling unwelcome in their own home. To everyone who encouraged me to stand my ground, thank you. Your support helped me make one of the hardest but most necessary decisions of my life. Dorothy deserves to grow up knowing she's a priority, not an inconvenience to be managed or excluded. And I deserve a partner who understands that Dorothy and I are a package deal, not just when it's convenient, but always. Now let's move to the next story. Story 2. My ex-wife begged me for money, then stole my grandmother's antique watch. I pressed charges. The court case revealed a shocking truth. I, Sam, 32M, recently found myself in a difficult situation with my ex-wife Megan, 30F. We were married for 5 years before divorcing 2 years ago. Our story began in college, where we met during an art history class. I was a computer science major, and Megan was studying fine arts. We bonded over our shared love for mixing technology and art, often discussing how we could blend our fields in the future. After graduation, I landed a job as a junior software engineer at a tech startup, while Megan pursued her passion for painting. We got married a year later in a small ceremony surrounded by our closest friends and family. The early years of our marriage were filled with excitement and dreams. We'd spend weekends exploring art galleries, with Megan explaining the nuances of different painting techniques, and evenings where I'd show her the basics of coding, imagining a future where we'd collaborate on digital art projects. Megan started a small online business selling her paintings. It wasn't very profitable, but she was passionate about it. I supported her dream and covered most of our expenses. We bought a cozy house in the suburbs, envisioning it filled with both art and technology, her paintings on the walls and my gadgets in every corner. However, as years passed, the reality of our different career paths began to create tension. My job became more demanding as the startup grew, often requiring late nights and weekends. Megan's art business struggled to take off, leading to frustration and self-doubt. We began arguing more frequently about finances and the time we spent together. The final straw came when I was offered a promotion that would require even more of my time. Megan felt I was prioritizing my career over our relationship, while I felt she didn't understand the pressures I was under to provide for us. After months of couples counseling and heated discussions, we realized we had grown apart and wanted different things from life. We decided to divorce, agreeing it was better to end things amicably than to grow resentful of each other. The divorce wasn't pleasant, but it wasn't terrible either. We both agreed it wasn't working and decided to part ways. We split our assets fairly, with Megan keeping the house we bought together. I agreed to this as I felt bad about her unstable income, and me moving out to an apartment closer to my office. After the divorce, I threw myself into my work. I got the promotion I had been eyeing and my career was going well. I also started exploring new hobbies, joining a local hiking group and taking up photography. It was during one of these hikes that I met Alexis, 29F, a wildlife biologist. We hit it off immediately, bonding over our love for nature and technology. We've been dating for about 6 months now, and things are going great. Megan, on the other hand, continued with her art business and took up a part-time job at a local art gallery to supplement her income. We didn't keep in touch much after the divorce, only communicating when necessary about house-related issues or to exchange pleasantries on birthdays. Last month, Megan called me out of the blue. Her voice sounded strained as she explained that she had lost her part-time job at the art gallery due to budget cuts. Her online business wasn't doing well either, with sales dropping significantly in recent months. She was struggling to pay the mortgage and asked if I could help her out financially for a few months until she found another job. I was taken aback by her request. We hadn't spoken much since the divorce, and I felt it wasn't my responsibility to support her anymore. I politely declined, suggesting she could sell the house and move to a smaller apartment if she was struggling. I even offered to help her find a realtor if she decided to go that route. Megan's response caught me off guard. Her voice rose as she accused me of being heartless. She reminded me of how she had supported me emotionally when I was struggling with work stress during our marriage. She recounted nights when she had stayed up late to listen to me vent about difficult projects or unreasonable clients. She mentioned how she had always believed in my potential and encouraged me to go for promotions, even when I doubted myself. She said she thought we could still be friends and help each other out. Her words brought back memories of the good times we had shared, making me question my decision for a moment. But I quickly reminded myself that we were no longer together, and our lives had taken different paths. I stood my ground and told her that while I appreciated her past support, we were no longer together, and I wasn't comfortable providing financial assistance. I suggested she could look into government assistance programs or ask her family for help. I knew her parents were well off and could probably help if she explained her situation to them. This made Megan even angrier. She started bringing up old issues from our marriage, saying I never truly valued her contributions to our relationship. She accused me of always prioritizing my career over her dreams, saying I had never given her art the respect it deserved. She said I was selfish for not helping her when I was doing well financially, especially since she had sacrificed years of her career to support mine. Her words stung, bringing back memories of our past arguments. I found myself getting defensive, reminding her that I had always supported her art financially, even when it wasn't profitable. I pointed out that I had never asked her to sacrifice her career for mine, and that I had always encouraged her to pursue her passions. The conversation was quickly spiraling into a heated argument reminiscent of our worst days together. I realized this wasn't productive for either of us and decided to end the call. I told Megan I was sorry she was going through a tough time, but I couldn't help her financially. I wished her luck and hung up, feeling a mix of guilt, anger, and sadness. Since that call, I've been replaying the conversation in my mind, wondering if I made the right decision. Some of our mutual friends have reached out, saying I should help Megan as she's going through a tough time. They think I'm being too harsh, especially given our history together. One friend, Tom, 33M, was particularly vocal about it. He reminded me of the time when Megan had nursed me back to health when I had a severe bout of flu, taking time off from her gallery job to look after me. He said that Megan had always been there for me during our marriage, and it was unfair of me to turn my back on her now. These comments have made me question my decision. I can't help but remember the good times we shared, the late-night painting sessions where Megan would teach me brush techniques, the weekends we spent redecorating our house, the support she gave me when I was nervous about big presentations at work. But then I also remember the reasons why we got divorced. The arguments about money, the growing distance between us as we pursued different life paths, the resentment that had built up over years of misunderstandings and unmet expectations. I remind myself that we're no longer in each other's lives for a reason, and that it's not my responsibility to solve her financial problems. I've also been thinking about how this situation might affect my relationship with Alexis. I haven't told her about Megan's call yet, unsure of how she might react. Alexis knows I'm on good terms with Megan, but helping an ex-wife financially is a different matter altogether. So, Reddit, Ida for refusing to help my ex-wife financially after she lost her job? Am I being cold-hearted, or am I right in maintaining boundaries with my ex? I'm truly torn and could use some outside perspective on this situation. Update 1. It's been about a month since my original post, and a lot has happened. I want to thank everyone for their input. It really helped me gain perspective on the situation. After much thought, I decided to stick to my decision of not providing direct financial assistance to Megan. However, I did offer to help her in other ways. I reached out to her and suggested I could help her update her resume and even put her in touch with some contacts in the art world who might be able to offer her work. Megan initially refused my offer, still insisting that I should help her financially. But after a week of no contact, she called me back and reluctantly accepted my help with her job search. I spent a weekend helping her polish her resume and portfolio website. As we worked together, it felt like old times for a moment. We fell into an easy rhythm, with Megan explaining her recent art projects and me suggesting ways to present them professionally online. It reminded me of the early days of our relationship when we would brainstorm ideas for her art business. While updating her website, I noticed that some of her newer paintings had a darker, more abstract tone compared to her earlier work. When I asked about this change, Megan hesitated before explaining that her art had been influenced by her recent struggles. It was a poignant moment that made me realize how much she had been affected by recent events. I also reached out to a few friends who work in galleries and design firms. One of them, Lisa, 35F, agreed to interview Megan for a part-time position at her gallery. I remembered how Lisa and Megan had hit it off at one of our dinner parties years ago, bonding over their shared love for Impressionist art. I hoped this connection might give Megan an edge in the interview. However, things took an unexpected turn. While I was helping Megan with her resume, I noticed some discrepancies in her work history. She had listed a job at a prestigious gallery that I knew she had never worked at. When I questioned her about it, she got defensive and admitted she had embellished her resume a bit. I was shocked. This wasn't just a small exaggeration, it was a complete fabrication. I told her I couldn't in good conscience recommend her to my contacts with a fake resume. Megan exploded, accusing me of sabotaging her chances and going back on my word to help. The argument that followed brought back memories of our worst fights during our marriage. Megan accused me of never believing in her talent, saying that if I truly supported her, I would understand why she needed to enhance her resume. I tried to explain that lying on a resume was not only unethical but could seriously harm her career if discovered. But Megan wouldn't listen. As her voice rose, I found myself falling into old patterns, becoming defensive and raising my voice as well. It was like we had traveled back in time to the last days of our marriage, rehashing old arguments about career support and mutual understanding. Finally, Megan stormed out, saying she would find a way to manage without my holier-than-thou help. The slam of the door echoed in my apartment, leaving me standing there, feeling a mix of anger, disappointment, and concern. A few days later, I received a series of angry texts from Megan. She accused me of ruining her life, first by divorcing her and now by refusing to help when she needed it most. She even threatened to tell all our friends that I had cheated on her during our marriage, which is completely untrue. These messages brought back painful memories of the worst period of our divorce when rumors and accusations flew back and forth between our friend groups. I had thought we were past all that, and seeing Megan resort to such tactics again was deeply disappointing. I was stunned by her behavior. This wasn't the Megan I knew and had been married to. The Megan I remembered was kind, ethical, and passionate about her art. I began to wonder if there was more going on with her than just financial troubles. After some deliberation, I decided to reach out to Megan's sister, Lily, 28F, whom I had always been on good terms with. During our marriage, Lily had often acted as a mediator during our arguments, helping us see each other's perspectives. I hoped she might have some insight into Megan's current state of mind. When I called Lily, she sounded worried. She revealed some concerning information about Megan. Apparently, Megan had been struggling with some personal issues for a while now. She had lost her job at the art gallery not because of downsizing as she had told me, but because she had been caught stealing small items to sell online. Lily also mentioned that Megan had been behaving erratically lately, spending money recklessly and then panicking about finances. She had asked several family members for loans but refused to explain exactly what the money was for. Lily expressed concern that Megan might be dealing with some form of addiction or mental health issue, but so far, Megan had refused any suggestions of seeking professional help. This information put everything in a new light. While I still believe I made the right choice in not giving Megan money, I'm now worried about her well-being. The Megan that Lily described was a far cry from the woman I had married, the one who used to budget meticulously for art supplies and was always responsible with our shared finances. Lily and I agreed to keep an eye on the situation and encourage Megan to seek help if her behavior continues to be concerning. We reminisced about happier times, family holidays where Megan would sketch portraits of everyone, her excitement when she sold her first painting. It made the current situation feel even more tragic. I'm still processing all of this information and trying to figure out if there's anything else I should do. Part of me wants to reach out to Megan directly, to see if I can help her get the support she needs. But another part of me is hesitant, remembering how our last interaction ended and fearing that my involvement might make things worse. For now, I've decided to take a step back and let Lily take the lead in helping Megan. I've assured Lily that I'm here if she needs any support, but I think it's best if I maintain some distance given the complicated history between Megan and me. This whole situation has left me feeling emotionally drained. I've found myself reflecting on our marriage, wondering if there were signs I missed, things I could have done differently. It's a stark reminder of how life can change and how the people we once knew so well can become almost unrecognizable. I'll update again if anything significant happens. For now, I'm trying to focus on my own life while hoping that Megan gets the help she needs. Update 2. It's been 2 weeks since my last update, and the situation with Megan has escalated in ways I never expected. Last week, I received a call from the local police department. They wanted to question me about some valuable items that had gone missing from my apartment. I was confused because I hadn't noticed anything missing, but when they described the items, my grandmother's antique watch and a few other family heirlooms, I realized they were things I'd packed away in storage after the divorce. These items held deep sentimental value for me. The watch, in particular, was a cherished gift from my grandmother on her 80th birthday. I remembered how proud she was to pass it down to me, telling me stories of how it had been in our family for generations. The thought of it being stolen made my heart sink. The officer informed me that these items had been pawned at a local shop, and the transaction was captured on security cameras. To my shock, the person in the footage was Megan. I felt like the ground had dropped out from under me. During our marriage, Megan had free access to our apartment, and she knew the location of my storage unit. She must have used her old key to enter my apartment and take the items when I was at work. As the reality of the situation sank in, a flood of memories washed over me. I remember the day I had shown Megan these family heirlooms, explaining the history behind each piece. She had been fascinated, especially by the watch, admiring its intricate engraving and asking me to tell her all the stories my grandmother had shared about it. The thought that she had now stolen and pawned these precious items felt like a betrayal of not just me, but of the entire history and trust we had shared. The police asked if I wanted to press charges. I was torn. On one hand, what Megan did was clearly wrong and illegal. It wasn't just theft, it was a profound breach of trust. On the other hand, I couldn't help but remember the good times we had shared and wonder what had driven her to this point. I thought about our wedding day, how radiant Megan had looked as she walked down the aisle, the promises we had made to always support each other. I remember the countless nights we had spent talking about our dreams, our fears, our hopes for the future. How had we gone from that to this? After much deliberation, I decided to press charges. It was a difficult decision, but I felt it was necessary. Maybe this would be the wake-up call Megan needed to get her life back on track. I hoped that facing the consequences of her actions might push her to seek the help she clearly needed. The next day, Megan was arrested. Lily called me, distraught. She begged me to drop the charges, saying Megan was going through a really tough time and didn't need legal troubles on top of everything else. She revealed that Megan had been diagnosed with depression a few months ago but had stopped taking her medication, believing she could handle things on her own. I explained to Lily that while I sympathized with Megan's struggles, her actions had crossed a line, and there needed to be consequences. I assured her that I didn't want to see Megan suffer, but I believed this might be the push she needed to accept help and make positive changes in her life. News of Megan's arrest spread quickly among our friend group. Opinions were divided. Some supported my decision, saying Megan needed to face the consequences of her actions. Others thought I was being too harsh and should have handled it privately. Tom, the friend who had previously urged me to help Megan financially, called me. He was upset, saying I had gone too far by involving the police. He reminded me of all the times Megan had been there for me, arguing that I owed her more compassion. His words made me question my decision again, bringing back memories of the good times in our marriage. On the other hand, my girlfriend Alexis has been incredibly supportive. When I told her what happened, she listened without judgment and helped me process my conflicting emotions. She pointed out that enabling Megan's behavior wouldn't truly help her in the long run. The whole situation has left me feeling drained and conflicted. I never imagined our post-divorce relationship would deteriorate to this point. I'm trying to remind myself that I'm not responsible for Megan's choices, but it's hard not to feel guilty. I've decided to take a step back from the whole situation for my own mental health. I've told Lily to keep me updated on any major developments, but otherwise, I'm trying to focus on my own life and healing from this ordeal. I'm scheduled to give my statement to the police next week. After that, I suppose the legal process will take its course. I'll update again if there are any significant developments. Update 3, it's been a month since my last update, and I wanted to share the latest developments in this complicated situation. The legal proceedings against Megan moved forward. She was charged with theft and breaking and entering. However, her lawyer managed to negotiate a plea deal. In exchange for pleading guilty, Megan would avoid jail time but would have to complete 200 hours of community service, attend mandatory counseling sessions, and pay restitution for the items she stole. During the court proceedings, some troubling information came to light. It turned out that Megan had developed a gambling problem over the past year. She had been frequenting online casinos and accrued significant debt. This explained her desperate need for money and her erratic behavior. Learning about Megan's addiction put things in a new perspective for me. While it didn't excuse her actions, it helped me understand the desperation that drove her to steal from me. I couldn't help but wonder if I had missed signs of this problem during our marriage, or if it had developed after our divorce. After the sentencing, Lily reached out to me. She thanked me for pressing charges, saying it was the wake-up call Megan needed. Apparently, Megan had finally agreed to enter a rehabilitation program for her gambling addiction. Lily seemed hopeful that this would be a turning point for Megan. I had mixed feelings about this news. On one hand, I was relieved that Megan was getting help. On the other hand, I felt a lingering sadness about how things had turned out between us. I found myself remembering the dreams we once shared, of building a life together, of supporting each other through thick and thin. It was hard to reconcile those memories with recent events. As for me, I've spent a lot of time reflecting on everything that's happened. While I still believe I made the right choices throughout this ordeal, I can't help but feel a mix of emotions, sadness for how things turned out, relief that it's over, and hope that Megan will get the help she needs. This experience has made me realize the importance of maintaining healthy boundaries, even with people we once cared deeply about. It's also reminded me of the unpredictable nature of life and relationships. I've decided to use this experience as a catalyst for positive change in my own life. I've started volunteering at a local community center, teaching basic computer skills to seniors. It's been a rewarding experience and has helped me gain perspective on my own problems. I've also taken steps to better secure my apartment and personal information. It's sad that I had to do this because of someone I once trusted completely, but it's a necessary precaution. My relationship with Alexis has grown stronger through this ordeal. Her unwavering support and understanding have been a source of comfort. We've had many deep conversations about trust, forgiveness, and the complexities of past relationships. These discussions have brought us closer and helped us build a stronger foundation for our future together. As for Megan, I wish her well in her recovery, but I've made it clear to both her and Lily that I need to maintain firm boundaries. Our paths have diverged, and while I hope she finds happiness and stability, that journey is hers to make. I did receive a letter from Megan recently. In it, she apologized for her actions and thanked me for pushing her to get help. She acknowledged the pain she had caused and expressed hope that someday I might forgive her. While I appreciated her words, I'm not ready to respond just yet. I need more time to process everything that's happened. This whole experience has been a stark reminder that life can take unexpected turns, and people can change in ways we never anticipated. It's taught me valuable lessons about setting boundaries, the importance of self-care, and the complex nature of forgiveness. I'm choosing to focus on the lessons learned and move forward with a sense of cautious optimism. While I can't change the past, I can use this experience to shape a better future for myself. Thank you to everyone who's followed this story and offered advice along the way. Your support has been invaluable during this challenging time. I hope my experience can serve as a cautionary tale about the importance of maintaining healthy boundaries and seeking help when needed.